Hi, everybody, and welcome to another fabulous Facebook Live. I'm Diane Ray, co-founder of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network, and I'm jumping on for another episode of Meet the Podcasters. And Tina Williamson and I, the other founder and very important person, business partner of mine here for MindBodySpirit.fm, we've been wanting to do these regular Facebook Lives and introduce you to some of our podcasters on the network. And we have over 60 podcasters that are all sharing some amazing information on things like mediumship and spirituality and angels and intuition. And you may recognize some former Hay House people or maybe Unity people. And if you want to see our whole lineup, definitely go to the website, mindbodyspirit.fm, and see who we have here. So today, I'm very excited that we're delving into the world of animal communication. And we have an amazing podcast on the network. If you haven't discovered it yet, it's called the Animal Communication Podcast. And it's hosted by three women who are passionate about sharing with people their love for animals and how to help us communicate with our beloved animal friends. So I want to welcome Julie Heert, Karen Dendy-Smith, and Meredith Tollison, the hosts of the Animal Communication Podcast. Thanks for joining me today on my Facebook Live.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're so excited to be here. It's fun.
Yeah, who would have thought, we'd be on here doing TV shows.
We thought we'd be talking to animals. I don't know.
Right? No, I'm so excited to talk to you about animal communication. So together, though, you all are part of the Animal Communication Collective, and you all are working towards supporting animal welfare organizations and giving voice to animals in the podcast is a big part of helping with that mission. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about what that entails. And Karen, I wanted to start with you, since you are the founder and director of the Animal Communication Collective. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, I want to say all three of us are directors of the Animal Communication Collective. I happen to be the founder because my cat Hockey Puck in Spirit dumped the idea on me one evening. Believe it or not, while I was at a dinner with my husband after having gone to a memorial service for a funeral, and which is an interesting place to have been. But basically, the Animal Communication Collective is a group of 30 plus animal communicators, all women right now, who have all gone through the same rigorous training at the same school, the Danielle McKinnon School. And we, with the idea that came to me, which I'll share in a moment, but the idea is that we all came together to collaborate to help give animals a voice and help them be more understood in rescue shelters and sanctuaries, hoping that we would be able to enlighten the humans that are involved in these endeavors with the depth of knowledge and emotional capacity that these beautiful animals have as sentient beings, and to help create better partnerships and homes for them. So we all work together running these events, more than monthly now, at least once a month, for rescues and shelters all around the country. And we work in teams to deliver messages to people and their animals who come to the events and buy tickets and buy raffle tickets. And 100% of the proceeds goes to whichever animal partner we're working with for the evening. So we do this 100% as a volunteer act of love with the animals.
It's amazing what you're doing. You came to our attention through a great friend of the network, Jill Angelo, and she works in animal rescue. And she said, you have to talk to these women that are animal communicators. And she was doing an event. So if people go to that website, it's the Animal Collective. I believe it's the Animal Communication Collective.
Correct.
Okay. And so I actually went earlier before we were going to talk, and I saw you're doing an event with an amazing organization here in San Diego called the Animal Pad, where a friend of mine has adopted several dogs from the Animal Pad. So she's a big fan. And what you do is so incredible. So were you all three girls the ones that brought the stray dogs and cats home, when you were kids?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure we all have stories, or even talking to like the bugs. Like I had a pet rabbit, but when I was a kid, but also talking to like the bugs and whatnot in the yard and the dandelions and all of that too. Yeah, that was me. I'll let Mare and Karen talk a little bit more too about their experiences of strays.
I was actually not the one bringing home strays because there was not a chance that was going to go over in my household. I was raised by a beautiful series of Siamese cats. And I had a beautiful relationship with my great great aunt and uncle who had black cats. Never had a black cat. And then as I entered my adult life, all of a sudden, all of these black cats started showing up for me. So over the course of our 25 years together, once I was an adult, yes, I took in the strays. But over the course of 25 years, my husband and I have had 7 black cats and 4 black dogs that have all shown up for us.
That's so great.
Literally turn themselves in at our house.
I'm a big fan of the black cats. I have a huge black cat. His name is Slicker. Slick, Slicky, Slicker, various names. You know how that is. You've always got 10 nicknames for your pets. But I love black cats, and I've been a cat lover, and so is Tina. We both love cats. So I've always been the one that had the cats. Dogs. We had dogs growing up too, but as an adult, I've always had cats, and always 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep, me too. My hockey puck was a Black Panther cat. He's the one that downloaded that idea to me that I brought to everyone else and helped me form this amazing organization. And without Julie and Meredith, it doesn't run. So it's really the 3 of us making sure that the engine runs and that we have all the right things in place to create success for and raise money for these amazing organizations. But as a kid, I was the one who was collecting the acorns and leaving them in piles at the bottoms of the trees so the squirrels wouldn't have to work so hard to get their food for the winter. And I was definitely the one who was afraid to touch the worms, and I kept pushing them to the side so that they wouldn't get squished. Yeah.
So you were always aware of the animals and always had a love for them as a child. I think that's so great. Yeah. And I love what you're doing with the organization. It's such a cool idea. So the podcast is such a great extension of that and just bringing people to your work and animal lovers all over the world. And something that you do on the podcast is sharing your experiences on soul level animal communication. You call it soul level animal communication. So what makes that different and special? I'm so curious to find out about that.
So how it's different is that the client or the human walks away from a session with any one of us, any of us soul level animal communicators, with homework of what they can do with their animal to learn and grow their own selves. So the animal is actually coming alongside and giving their human an invitation to learn a lesson. So Lucas, for example, my dog has really been working with me on trust, as well as trusting my voice as well. And so he does that in a variety of different ways. He may do different behaviors that make me go, what's that about? Or he might not want to eat certain food. It all depends. But in a session, then I would work with the client to understand what is it that your animal's doing. And then we ask the animal, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And what can the human do to work alongside you to learn whatever lesson then that the animals come out with? So for me, it's been profound. It's changed my life completely. I used to be, as Karen and we both have advertising backgrounds, and now I do this work full time. It's peeled back the layer of like negative beliefs. It's peeled back behaviors that kept me trapped in things that didn't serve me anymore. It's been absolutely life-changing.
And this was based on Danielle McKinnon teachings?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And she's an amazing teacher as well, if she's watching. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
And she's been on the podcast. Thank you, Danielle.
Oh, we would love to. She's an amazing teacher. Well, we would love to have her have a podcast. Let's throw the idea out there as well on the network. So I think that's so interesting how you're really helping people to open up their minds and really pay attention to their animals. And I'm thinking of my own pets, and my other cat, Gracie, she would always have different intonations with her meows. And I would call one the emphatic mew, because she would meow really loudly and then she'd go meow, like it would have a certain kind of intonation. And I knew she was really trying to get my attention. So if we really pay attention, we can really learn how to have just a richer, deeper connection with our pets, can't we? By just paying a little bit more attention.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some ways that we could recognize and understand what our animals are trying to tell us?
Some of the ways that we recognize, I mean, it's very interesting. There are a couple of approaches. Sometimes they will, what we call, model a behavior that you might be arrested by in some way because it touches your heart, or it makes you think, wow, I wish I was more like that, or I can't believe they have so much courage. Something that they're modeling that stops you and catches your attention, so that you think about that for yourself. The other thing they might do is mirror something. And a perfect example, my cat Dia mirrors because we have resonance. Our animals and us have resonance. It's why we are kind of physically drawn to each other. And in my case, she has a very sensitive digestive system, and a lot of emotion gets stored in the gut and gets tightened up in the gut. And for me, I had an ulcer when I was a teenager and in college, and so I have a lot of emotional gut stuff too. And so if I'm not really paying attention to myself and I start spinning out of control in that way, or I start clamping down on myself, inevitably she eats too fast because she's feeling my stress and then throws up.
That's
So when
so
she throws
interesting.
up, I have to stop and ask, what's actually going on in me that I've missed? And, a lot of the times there's resonance there.
I've noticed that. I have a friend that is so anxious, and every pet, she's had a couple of dogs since I've known her, and they've always been anxious dogs.
Right.
Like they're picking up on her energy too.
Exactly.
And with the animals, I've read that they're telepathic, and I really believe my cats are talking to each other behind my back, I'm sure, about me. And I read that on the website. So what do you think they're saying? What are they communicating? Any ideas?
Well, I believe that our animals are communicating with each other all the time and with us. We just happen to be privileged enough to have done the work to learn this process, that we're now open to this. Anybody can do this work. We say it's like exercising a muscle. I know I have a 6-pack in my abdomen. If I did sit-ups, you would be able to see it. I know it's in there, but you can't see it. Everybody has the ability to do this. We have gone through the training. We've gone through the work to learn how to do it. And now we're open to the idea to the fact, actually, that our animals are communicating with each other. They are communicating with us. They're actually knocking on the door of every human that they live with, going, please see me, hear me, understand me, giving all sorts of signs and symbols and communications in that way. If we're just open to receiving the things that they're telling us, it's all energy, right? It's all energy. So whatever they're sending to us, if we're open to receiving it, we can then take that, work with it collaboratively with them, and see what the lessons are that they're working with us on.
I've heard a lot of mediums say a similar thing, that, everybody does have the ability to communicate with our relatives and people who have passed. And it's kind of like you just explained, it's a muscle that you work, and some people obviously are better at it than others. But if we kind of tune in, we can all, experience that. And that's what you're sharing too, that we can all experience having a richer relationship and really communicating with our pets.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about how we just recorded an episode that'll be out in a couple weeks about energy management, which is so key. So how do we quiet the mind in an effort to be able to tune into the cats that are talking? I very much doubt they're talking behind your back, Diane. I think they're trying to get you to join the conversation. But how do we quiet the mind to be able to do this work? And so we do episodes where we talk about how you too can do this work. We talk about what the lessons are that they can bring. And then we bring on other people that have other experiences in animal communication. We've had mediums on because animals come into mediumship sessions and people come into our sessions. The animals bring people across, which is always kind of interesting. Like, oh, didn't expect that. So it's just, we try to share a lot of different perspectives about what all this work can be, what it can do, and how it can help.
So how do you handle the skeptics? Like, how do you handle people that just kind of roll their eyes or think that their animals don't have a rich emotional life or souls? I mean, I have no doubt that they do, but I'm sure there's a lot of doubters out there?
Well, one, I don't have to worry about any of those people actually booking a session with me, because if they're that skeptical, they aren't going to waste the money. So that's great. But besides that, in dinner conversation, or if you're at a party and it comes up and somebody rolls their eyes, I'm very careful about what I start with when I talk about my work. If I'm in mixed company, or we call it Muggle land, I just start with saying I do intuitive work. And if somebody hooks into that, I know they're open. And if somebody just looks at me blankly, I know they're not. And if they start down a path, I just say, I'm really sorry you haven't had that experience yet. But when the time comes and you do, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Do you feel that way too, Julie and Meredith?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even too, and I do want Meredith to say this too, sometimes all of that, I do actually like to kind of, I'll say poke the bear a little bit too. Like if they don't understand what animal communicator is, we actually prefer the word animal communicator or intuitive, because psychic has so much baggage to it. So if somebody doesn't understand what animal communicator is, I'll say pet psychic, because there's been TV shows with pet psychics, right? And I can tell, just like Karen was saying, I can tell if they're going to be resistant to it, but I'll just be like, how are you going to answer that question? I kind of like to, let's start that conversation and see what they have to say about it. It's not always, sometimes it can get a little sticky, but I also think the conversations need to be had, particularly what's going on with, how energetically things are opening up as we're all witnessing as well. I think it's time to have that conversation.
Oh, I agree. Do you think so too, Meredith? Have you ever won over any converts?
Yes. As I said before, it's all energy. So I feel that the people who do book sessions with me are drawn to me energetically. It's the casual conversations that initially, when I started doing this work professionally, I kept it very quiet. I kept it very much to myself. And I figured the people who wanted to hear about it would show up for me. I didn't think I was going to be surrounded by folks who found it very, very interesting and that actually were interested in the process. And then, here we are, we're doing this podcast and it's out there to the entire world. So now I speak about it just very frankly. This is something I do. Oh, do you find that interesting? I'll be happy to tell you more. You can tell the people who are interested and the people who are going to back off. And if they back off, kind of like Karen, I say, you haven't had this experience yet. And I don't let it really bother me anymore like I used to.
Hopefully they'll be open to it, right? At some point.
And if they are, great. And if they're not, that's part of their journey. And I have to just step back and allow it to happen. I love this work. I feel passionate about it. Getting the word out with this podcast and the way that things are changing universally, energetically. It's much more accepted than I thought it would be, especially in my part of the world and in the people that I'm surrounded with. And I'm just glad to be a part of sharing it with the world.
Well, I wanted to touch a little bit on pets and grief, because I think that people, I know they do grieve deeply for their pets. And I've even talked to some people who have shared, often kind of with a little bit of shame, that, well, I grieved more for my dog than I did for a parent, or they were able to release that, those feelings. I mean, I just think it's such a connection that we have with our pets. I mean, I know I've grieved and just had to, seclude myself a couple of times when I've lost pets. How do you help people cope with that, with grief? Because they may be surprised at the intensity of it, when they experience that with an animal they really love. What do you think, Julie? I'll start with you. Let's go around the room.
Yeah. So, first of all, our animals, when they cross, many, many times, 99.9% of the time, they're still helping us learn and grow. So, while we can still do soul level animal communication sessions, I will also do like a pet loss grief session. So we'll still get the homework, but I'll kind of let that framework open up a little bit. I also do pet loss grief circles where I have only 8 people can attend, and I partner with a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and we pair movement and whatnot in an effort to hear from the animals, but also move that energy through. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. And we've talked with Radley Valentine on our show and talked about how the angels and the animals can support us in grief as well. So that was a really fun episode to have him a part of as well. There's so much, because the animals, just like our people, they don't really leave us, and they give us signs, and they do a lot of things. So how can we hold space? And I know Karen and Meredith do that really well as well. We all hold space for someone who's grieving and allow that animal to bring that comfort through.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that, Karen, working with people in grief?
I think it's an incredibly important part of the work, or it is for me anyway. And I didn't think it would be, honestly, when I first started this work. But I actually went and got a certificate through the University of Vermont, as did Meredith, for companion animal end-of-life doula, where we're working with people and their animals through that experience of the transition into the end of life and into spirit. And it's a very sacred journey, I think. And when people feel more held in that journey, and that they have a space to share what they think they might have known but were afraid to say a lot of times, and the animal can validate some of the things they might have been thinking but thought they were crazy about, that no one else understood, it can really help the grief process. But whether you have that intuitive background or not, grief is grief. We have lost something in the 3D, and we do absolutely feel left behind. And so there's a part of that where I actually have been finding that in my sessions with people who have lost animals, I've incorporated bringing them through a meditation and a very beginning experience on how to let their grief kind of fade away for a moment, so they can have a sense or a feeling of a shift in energy vibration around them. And that really can help someone realize there's more here than what I'm left with in the 3D. So that's a really important part of the experience that I've started weaving in to the process.
Did you have anything to add, Meredith?
Yeah, I will add that doing this work has very much shifted the way that I feel going through grief. Of all of the animals that I mentioned previously, I'm down to 1 dog and 2 cats. So I've had a good bit of loss in my animal family. But having done the end-of-life pet companion doula course that Karen mentioned, I have additional skills that I feel that I can offer for my clients. I frequently do, stand in for people at times of assisting their pet and crossing over when they feel that they can't be there. And it's really opened my heart to how I deal with my own grief, as well as assisting clients in moving through their grief. I mean, grief is it's a very human construct. And now that I know that our people and our animals can still be with us, even if they're not physically here in body, I'm not going to even say lessons, but it helps my heart heal. And I hope to be able to help other people learn to heal their own hearts, just knowing that they're not completely disconnected just because we're no longer physically in the same plane.
I agree. I feel that too. I've had dreams of pets, and one certain pet, I'm sure you guys, I'm going to ask you who that special one was for you. And I had a cat named Tony, and this cat came with me on several different moves. He moved with me from Florida to California, these major life changes. And I just loved him so much. And he still shows up in dreams, and he'll talk with me, and I tell my husband that he thinks I'm nuts, but he was the special one, very special cat. Who was your special pet that has that place in your heart? Who's that for you, Julie?
Well, I would have to give Bono the credit. So yes, I'm a huge U2 fan. It's my favorite band. And so I found this dog wandering the streets of Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I lived, gosh, however long ago, 20 years ago, brought him home. His name's Bono. When he passed, it was within 6 months. It was after the other dog. You can see her portrait right there. That's India. India passed and then Bono passed within 6 months of each other. And it was with him that I started this work because I was in such a deep depression. A friend of mine said, you should study animal communication. I think you should. And I had been using animal communicators through their transition and others. So for him, that's the one that for me is when I did my first meditation to do animal communication, he was the animal that met me and guided me into the forest to find other, all the other things we were working on. But yeah, Bono is my special.
I love that. I'm a U2 fan too. Who was the special one for you, Karen? I know they're all special, but
they're all special.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Hockey Puck. My Hockey Puck.
Puck.
And I talk about him. He weaves into a lot of my thoughts in our podcasts. It's because of him that I literally changed my entire life. When he passed, I was so deep in grief, and I am one of those people who I've never experienced grief as deep as that, even though I have lost other people in my life. But he's the one that led me to Daniel McKinnon and the school. He's the one that downloaded the information to get us started together, creating the Animal Communication Collective. He shows up all the time on my phone when I'm not thinking, and I grab it, and it's 11:11 a.m., p.m., 1:11. It's insane how much it happens that I have screen grabbed every single one so that we could actually look at it someday. And he is the one that really, it's because of him that I walked away from a pretty lucrative, long-standing branding and design firm that I was a partner in, and to leave and do this work instead. So yeah, it's all because of him.
Hockey Puck. I love it. And who's yours, Meredith?
This has always been a really interesting question for me because I can't put my finger on a single soul animal. What I realize is that I can see now that each and every one of my animals has been working with me on a specific lesson at that point in time, at that place in my life. I will say I call Quentin my muse because a lot of behavioral difficulties with him. I became a certified dog trainer. I began studying animal communication. I call him my muse, but I recognize the value of all of the lessons that all of my other animals worked with me on and are still working with me on. It's like I call one in, I call Vader in when I need to work on a particular thing. I call Boris in when I'm working on something else. And I keep Quentin on my shoulder, kind of helping me remember why I'm here and the pain and the struggle and all of the efforts that he and I put in together and how much we grew together. So that's a roundabout way of saying they're all my soul babies. But
they are.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to pick one, but there's some that just have a special place in our hearts. But I'm so glad that you could talk to me today and share this time and share the Animal Communication Podcast. And I hope that people will either come to the website, mindbodyspirit.fm. There it is, the bottom of your screen. And definitely follow the Animal Communication Podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode. You could also listen to all the older episodes if you missed any right from the site there. And subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today and sharing your stories.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Diane. It's such a pleasure to be part of the mindbodyspirit.fm family too. So thank you so much for everything.
Oh, we love you.
Oh, we love you.
We love being a part of this. It's been life-changing. It really has.
Yeah.